Oh, Heartman, how many several topics do you have? About the Dreamcatcher. There's a physiological framework from which persists that the human personality is composed of various strands. Our inner mind, the outer character, each is a strand, or thread made up of yet smaller threads which intertwine with others to make us who we are. And nurturing each strand, we become better people and inure ourselves against physiological harm. Harm? Harm. Or so the theory goes. Uh, as old as it may sound, this is not entirely dissimilar concept to the one which lies behind the most ubiquitous of Jubilee artifacts, the Dreamcatcher. You've seen them before, yes? A woven web of threads said to protect the mind from harm by trapping nightmares, thus ensuring that only pleasant dreams are passed through. It is no coincidence that these charms come to symbolize the pan-Indian movement of the 20th century. Many various Native American tribes strove to set aside their differences in order to foster a group identity, a singular dream. As such, it came to symbolize what made them one people, the uh, what united them. In essence, strands can replace that which makes us who we are, that which uh, differentiates us from what we are not, the bonds we share with one another. Cupus. Cupu means knot in the Quechua language. Objects given the name were used in ancient Incan society to record and transmit information. And yes, Omni just so happened to wear one. The Inca could pass Cupu from one place to another via a network of messages known as chisques. Sure. You may be surprised of the complexity that can be communicated through a simple system of knots, and not merely numerical data. It is said that the whole histories could be contained in these intrinsic webs. Some theories suggest that they were ascribed magical properties too. Certain combinations of knotted numbers were thought to encourage the dead to sleep peacefully in their graves. For example, thus we see that the cuckoo is at once a tool for communication, storytelling, and ritual. About Sam's return. Sam has returned, safe and sound. It had been about a month since he departed from Amelie's Beach. 3 days of relentless searching for us. The Though for him it must have felt like an eternity. I cannot imagine the isolation and despair he must have been forced to endure, a suffering known only by Amelie and Bridget. Sam has told us about the extinction entity and how it granted humanity a reprieve, but beyond that, he is reluctant to speak. We shall not put any pressure on him. Frankly, I expect we would struggle to comprehend anything else he tells us. Suffice to say that the last stranding has been avoided, even if its precursor has forever reshaped our world. Thousands and thousands of years from now, should intelligent life walk the earth and find our fossils, they would likely conclude that the Homo sapiens died out of in the sixth extinction. uh, Perhaps it was we are lucky. They may even find records we leave behind. Still, we cannot hope to guess how much they will understand about who we were. After all, our intelligence will not be like our their intelligence will not be like ours. Theirs will be different understanding of the world, the universe, different forms of existence, different conceptions of what it is to be alive. Uh, these invariably, I can speak. He's a scientist. These invariably led to different conceptions of what it is to die. But it matters not if they never understand who we were. All that matters, in my opinion at least, is that they know that we were here. What became of Heartman? Countless trips to the beach every single day, each spent searching in vain for my wife and daughter. Such has been my existence, my fate, if you will. The worlds each of us inhabit posthumously are also unique. If that is the case, then even death shall not reunite me with my family. That's why I must search the beach after beach for any trace, any clues, anything that might lead me back to them. Death is not the end after all, and the past is never dead. Indeed, it is not even past. I have decided to give up my quest, and for I have come to realize it will change nothing. I must move on with my life, and as a matter of fact, I already have. I met someone. Her name is Samantha Spade. I called her Sam, a spiritual Hispanic, a spiritual, wow, spirited Hispanic woman. You can imagine how frustrating it is to live life in 21-minute intervals. Speaking of which, ageless presidents. There's one rather trivial question that has caused me a great deal of consternation. Consternation? Consternation. Sure. Bridget was vague on. Wait, Bridget was on verging. Was Bert. Was better get there. Reset. Bridget was verging on the elderly, but her appearance was that of someone much younger. Indeed, she remained remarkably youthful until her cancer began to take its toll. Samuel has a photograph of Bridget from only 10 years ago, in which she still looks like a young woman. Some have persisted the theory that it was her strength of will, her desire to rebuild America, that kept her young. Mind over matter, I suppose. I, uh, Mind over matter. I suppose there may be some truth to that claim. I, however, suspect that the secret of Bridget's youthful appearance, is to be found on the beach. Damon was good enough to bring me her umbilical cord, to Sam, of course, and I was able to confirm that it was retained a connection to the beach. This is almost certainly related to why she did not age at the normal rate. Of course, we have no way of truly understanding this link between Bridget and the beach, or how long it existed. Similarly, we have no idea why Amelie was born. We can only survive. We can only surmise that Bridget's connection ensured that her hull was not fully subject to the passage of time. Does this mean that I too shall remain ageless well into my senior years? We shall have to see. Right now, I have something more pressing to attend to. Is it Da Vinci's Madonna Bjornwinder? Leonardo da Vinci, that most gifted Renaissance polymath, once conceived a composition that would come to be known as the Madonna del Fuji. De Fuji? De Fuji, or the Madonna of the Beyond Window. In its Mary cradles the infant Christ in her arms while he stares rapt as at a spindle onto which thread is wound, a spindle shaped like a cross. His mother seemed more than a little perturbed, but she perhaps have a premonition that her son would be sacrificed for the salvation of mankind? Me, I like to think of it as a spindle with which the Grecian fates determined the destiny of man. In the ancient times, the length of a thread dictated the lifespan of the individual in question. Of the three sisters, it was Clotho who unwound the thread. Lucius, Lucius? Lachis. Greek names are weird. Not weird. They're interesting. Unique. Lachis? Lachesis? Sure. Who measured the length, and Atropos, who at the appointed hour made the final cut. Mary didn't know the fate that was to befall Christ. Might she have intervened, catching the string at a different point and liberating him of his burden? I cannot help but wonder. As an aside, while I generally prefer the Greek nomenclature, I do have a strange fondness of Lackey's Roman moniker, uh, Decimia. Decimal. Sure. Like as in decimal point. What became of Milani and Lockne? Cool. Spellbreak's installed. Yay. I can play later. Uh, we'd forgotten all about our dream of going into space, of going to space. It was a dream from an earlier, simpler time. From before we realized our baby was a BT, binding us to the other side, and before we had to sever the link between us. After that, Milani couldn't even leave the blab, and Lockney swore to live a life of isolation in Mountain City. There was no room in our hearts for outer space. But now that we're one, it'll all become so clear, or it's all become so clear. And choosing isolation, choosing to forget about the outside world, we were just being human, just doing what everyone else was doing. We turned inwards, venturing deeper and deeper into ourselves, focusing on our inner worlds at the expense of that the one we shared. Maybe this is what they mean when they say the beach is a reflection of the individual soul. We became trapped in the multiverse contained within, but at least we have a chance to escape. Now that America is full, we can begin to expand our boundaries once more. The bonds we forged could carry us beyond these clouds. It's past the time we saw the stars again. If only we could. What became of Fragile? I've been thinking a lot about my father recently. I like to think he'd been happy if he were here. Now that Sam's made us whole again, he'd have his America back. Not that things were perfect, far from it. The Death Stranding we still have a thing, and people aren't free to go where they please. So the UCA's prospects don't look too great. But I'm not going to stand by and let it fall apart. After all, it's a symbol of everything my father held dear. Freedom and community. It's bigger than any one of us. Bigger than all of us still standing. We're only here because of those who came before. My father and everyone else back through the generation. I appreciate that more these days, I suppose, and I want to honor the people who made me who I am. That's why I've joined Bridges. I spent too long wrestling with the past, obsessed with getting revenge on Higgs, but the past can't be changed. All I can do now is build upon it and help deliver everyone a brighter future. Fragile Express is back in business. That's great. I appreciate that. President's Ghost, number one. This all happened years ago, so I can only hope enough times pass that I won't be getting into trouble for talking about it. But I believe it or not, people used to say that the president's official residence was haunted. Bear in mind, most were born after the Death Stranding don't go in for any of the supernatural stuff. Um, go in for any of the supernatural stuff. Yeah, sentence work. Why would they, when they know for a fact that the BTs not only exist but are out to get us? For folks like me, though, it used to be different. Even if you didn't really believe ghosts or were real or know anything about them, I don't know. Call it. Hold on. Oh, this is long. Call it general. Call it a general. Call it a generational thing. There you go. That's the word. I reckon most of the others who worked in the detail would say the same if you put the screws to them. Now here's what it gets a bit weirder. The ghost people Swiss heard about, it was the president. I saw her myself plenty of times, pretty much every time I did the night shift. Actually, there she was in the office or a corridor or something, just standing there. I tried calling out a couple of times, but whenever I did, she'd up and disappear. I'd say the ghost. I mean, was in her 20s, uh, but I'm not kidding when I tell you she looked like a younger President Strand, her younger self. Uh, and before you ask, there's no way it could have been an intruder. Couldn't have been the president herself either. She was always sleeping whenever there was a sighting, and even if she hadn't been, no weird trick of the lights could have made her look that much younger. So it was Amelie. I know it sounds crazy, but after a while, we couldn't help but believe it was a ghost, either the president's or that of someone else who was her splitting image. I knew I'd catch hell for it, but I just had to tell Die Hardman. It was secret, shutting down, rebooting. It was a security concern, and for one thing, and for all we knew, the president was sleepwalking or whatever. I was worried about her too. Truth be told, and I thought it was my duty to report it. Let me tell you, I sure as hell didn't expect the response I got. He told me, no matter of fact, that the ghost was actually the president's daughter, Amelie. I didn't even know the president had a daughter. Even he'd only found out recently, he said, and had been waiting for the right time to tell us. Apparently, she'd suffered from something known as locked-in syndrome from birth, had been hospitalized for a ridiculously long time. The president hadn't shared it with anyone except her closest confidants either. The president hadn't shared it with anyone except for her closest confidants either. Why would you say except for closest confidants either? Whatever. Could have said even. English is weird and sometimes hard. And then, after 20 years of treatment, Amelie had made a miraculous recovery. She was able to move around again. The president and her daughter had been living apart, but after her recovery, Amelie came to join her mother at the residence. It was kept on the need to know basis at first, just as the head of the details and some of the guards. I've never told anyone else about it until now. Uh, this is Die Hardman's take on it. When did I learn first about Amelie? Let's see, it was about 10 years ago when the president first told me. There had been rumors circulating among the president's security detail about a ghost in the official residence. Idle talk by bored soldiers. I figured, but then the president called me in and set the record straight. The ghost was her daughter, Amelie. The rumors had made their way to the president, and she was worried things might get out of hand. She explained how Amelie had been suffering from locked-in syndrome ever since she was born, and that she'd finally overcome it and was able to live a normal life again, together with her mother. There was a complication though. Amelie's soul had somehow been born on the beach. That's why her body suffered. Uh, 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 that's why her body suffered from the syndrome. I didn't really understand what she meant, but I understood when she ordered me to keep it all a secret until her reconstruction plan was nearly complete. Until Sam and Amelie were ready to leave Bridges, they were patriot and the daughter of Doom with Doom's numbers like nobody else. She knew the separatists would be up in arms if they found out about the two of them. All right.